Start.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shekru TV, Shekru Foundation's online activity in agriculture extension. My name is Anant Krishna. I am coming to you from Nandura, Buldana in Maharashtra. And I, along with my colleague, Bibhishan Bagal, who is in Fulton, Satara, from Shekru Foundation, will be hosting this session today. Shekru, if you're wondering, is the state animal of Maharashtra. It's an endangered squirrel. Shekru TV is a collaboration with various stakeholders out there in the agriculture ecosystem to look at relevant topics in an outreach to farmers, topics and things which are timely, contextual, objective, and topics that really matter to farmers and the other players in the agriculture ecosystem. So we're running a biochar series with our partner 2.0 Farms. And Tejas is here. We've done 2 sessions on biochar. This will be looking at the properties of biochar. So before I get Tejas to start the session, just a bit of housekeeping. There'll be a presentation. After that, there'll be an interactive Q&A. Those in Zoom can unmute themselves and ask questions or type in the chat box. Those that are joining us from YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn Live can type their question in the comment box. So Tejas, welcome again. Over to you.
Thank you, Anand. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, Anand. Thanks for the introduction. And hi, everyone. This is the 3rd session of a short series on biochar, where we'll be looking at the very basics of biochar. And the subject is decently big enough that the very basics could be covered in more than one episode, and that's what we are trying to do here. In the very first session, we looked at biochar, very basic introduction to biochar, covering a lot of different things. And last session, we looked at how to make biochar using various different ways and what are the factors that we take in while making biochar. This session, we'll be taking a look at what are the properties of biochar and what is it that is in biochar that makes it a little special. Let me share my screen. Visible? Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
So, as I said, we'll be looking at the properties of biochar. And biochar has various properties, physical, chemical, and some that can be classified as biological. So we'll be going through all of those things. And we all know what biochar is, but just for the introduction and this being a separate session, I'll quickly give a brief on what biochar is. So biochar is any form of organic leftovers, plant leftovers that are pyrolyzed in limited to no oxygen environment. That means we are splitting the material in presence of heat, but in limited presence of oxygen. So let's look at what physical properties are of matter of interest for us. So biochar has very high surface area, very high porosity, and also a very good water holding capacity. So we'll go into these one by one. Biochar typically has surface area ranging from 8 to 132 meters square per gram. So if you have to imagine that it is 1 gram of biochar, which is a very teeny tiny bit, it has 130 meters square of area, which is a big field, a big cricket ground, cricket stadium kind of a surface area in just one tiny little gram of good biochar. And sometimes if we follow the right processes before doing it, and
निवडक नाही पण ते जरा निवडक माल असतो but
Bibhishan, there's some crosstalk from your.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, coming back. So what do you want to say is I'll show you a basic picture and come back to this slide again. Look at these. These are the pictures of biochar when we look at them under a very magnified scenarios. The top left is fine needle biochar. We have a lot of fine needles up in the north, in the mountainous region. And this is how a very close-up look of fine needle biochar would look like. And same is rice husk, which we all know, wheat straw, and bamboo leaves biochar. A few more are here. Pine needle biomass, rice husk. Oh, I think there's a both are the same. So, how does this surface area help us, and why is it of important to us? We have to look at it. Then these tiny pores that are there in biochar help us retain water or moisture for a longer period. And a lot of nutrient retention also is helped during with this enormous surface area, especially when we look at cation exchange capacity, which we will come to in a bit. And all this surface area is like our built-up area in our houses, apartments, farms, and everything, which is like a place for microbes to happily live and prosper in general. And all this surface area is also helpful in reducing or removing all the contaminants, all the bad things that we know that some of us know that our soils are polluted or soils have some stuff that we don't want to be there in the first place. So all the surface area comes into play in order to mitigate that biosphere with its absorption capability. So these are some biochars under microscope, magnified them and looking at it. So the other property that we were looking at was the porosity. One is the surface area. That's different. Surface area comes into play even more when we grind the biochar or make its part into tiny things. But sometimes because of grinding, we might open up a lot of surface area, but we lose its porosity. All that pores are finely ground into powder. But those pores are also important if we look at it in some way or form. So when someone says, see, should we grind and make all of our biochar that we put in our soil into a powder? Maybe not necessarily, because pores also have a role to play if you look at it. Like, for example, there are biochar mostly has an empty void space because whatever was not carbon inside it was split and shunned out and removed out. So pretty much there is vacuum where water, air, or nutrients can come and occupy. Okay. And these pores, depending on how big they are, what's the size, can be classified into macro, meso, and micro pores. And these are their rough dimensions. Anything greater than 50 micron can be called a macropore. 2 to 50 micron is a mesopore, and less than 2 micron is a micropore. And these are like different things. If we can get into a big hall, we have to sort of crawl into something and we can't even enter some holes. So where do these different size of pores come into play is what we are looking at, where macropores allow air movement to happen between the roots and near the root zone, which is very healthy for a root. Meso, this is the right size to store water, store and hold on to nutrients, and create that adsorption properties, and they come up and become more and more significant in this size. And micropores are usually high surface area, and they can be used to absorb all the uh, gases and also even stop some of the emissions from the soil when it's put into uh, soil as in soil amendment. So pores are one of the very important characteristics. High porosity is a very good and important characteristic because different size of pores create a habitat for uh, different organism or material of interest for us when it comes to agriculture. This is how some of the pores would look like if we are lucky enough to look microscope under a very strong electron microscope. And this is the beautiful images they come out. This infinite surface area, tunnels, foams for everything, every different size of the pore plays a different role in terms of why porosity matters. For example, if we want to look at it, porosity can determine a lot of properties: water retention property, nutrient storage property, aeration within the soil, microbial life, and how well it can do. We need the right size of house for it. We can't stay in a very small house or a very big house. So contaminant filtration. So water retention holds on to rainwater in dry areas. Nutrient storage, for example, it prevents leaching. Even if we have too much, let's say, for example, someone who puts too much urea into their farm, the biochar can hold on to that nitrogen that comes out of urea and not let it leach when there is a high rain scenario. And it then allows the possibility of slow release of that same fertilizer to plants instead of having having to waste it with rain. Root oxygen access increases, soil aeration, microbial life. We talked about it. It provides safe habitat for microbes. So pores along with surface area are also important for all these different things. And porosity with the cation exchange capacity, with the adsorption properties, when a contaminant comes, it can get logged or locked there, and it can get immobilized there, and it can help us reclaim some of the spoiled lands and also remove or immobilize pollutants and heavy metals from the soil. One of the other thing that one of the other next physical properties that we will be looking at is water holding capacity. The amount of water, water holding capacity is the amount of water a material can retain and make it available to plants. And I think there's a slide on how we can measure it anywhere. Biochar in general can hold 3 to 6 times of its weight in water, which is amazing. Uh, because biochar is mostly void, mostly uh, air, mostly empty place, all that, provided the size of the pores and everything is right, can hold up to 6 times water, 6 times its weight in water. So why does it matter? We all know we have drought. We have long dry spells nowadays in summer. So having biochar in our uh, soil can help us gain those extra days in the end of the dry spell, and it becomes very, very important sometimes to for our plants to have a little bit more moisture in our soil to get and survive. Improved germination, seeds stay moist in biochar amended soil, and that conditions are very good, very apt usually for the right germination. So there have been a lot of instances where we have many people have seen improved germination when they use biochar compost or biochar in their nursery. Better nutrient uptake, of course, because moisture helps mobilize nutrients. Moisture is like a is the highway for nutrients to flow. They can't move around if there is nothing, no medium, and moisture like water is this medium. And holding on to more water means we use less water. If we use less water, we have more water available for use, and our neighbors, farmers also have more water available to use. So, in general, especially Indian soils could use some help when it comes to water holding capacity. This is an interesting thing on how we can test water holding capacity for any material. A common method is to saturate a known weight of that material with water fully. If you think it takes time, you can saturate it for longer time, and then let it dry under gravity. Uh, Let it drain under gravity, not dry under gravity. And when you no longer see any water dripping, then you can weigh that material, in this case biochar, uh, and and we have two weights, and weight of retained water divided by weight of biochar into 100 gives you the water holding capacity in the percentage. And that's how one can measure their biochar's water holding capacity. Now we'll come and look at the chemical properties of biochar, and some of the three things that I would like to focus on today are its cation exchange capacity, which I have mentioned a couple of times already in the uh, talk. and we'll look at what cation capacity is and the ability of biochar to modify soil's pH and the adsorption capacity, which is an effect of cation exchange capacity, the property of cation. So what is cation exchange capacity? Cation exchange capacity is the measure of how many cations a material can hold and release. The hold and release is important. That's why it's exchange and not capture. So hold and release is not common in a lot of things. Sometimes when there is absorption happening, then the material tends to get used by the material, by the host material. When exchange is there, then it doesn't use it up, but makes it available in future for any task. So cation exchange capacity is a measure of how many cations a material can hold and release. Basically, what it does is that it becomes like a magnet for all the nutrients in the soil, which means higher cation capacity. That means more nutrient holding power. It's almost like having a sponge for nutrients in your soil. So where does cation exchange capacity in biochar help us? It helps us in nutrient reduction. It helps us in reduced leaching. Our nutrient doesn't uh, go away, wash away. It improves fertilizer efficiency. All these are very related. If one is happening, then of course the other is happening. But all these three things are individually important for us in our current agriculture. And better soil buffering. It moderates soil pH and salinity fluctuations because a lot of it can be held on to and not released. So how biochar gains cation exchange capacity is a very important thing to look at because biochar doesn't start with very high cation exchange capacity, but it slowly unfolds its potential, uh, it, it, its immense potential of how much maximum cation exchange capacity it can. So what are some things? Aging, usually, if you look at the note, fresh biochar typically has low cation exchange capacity, but it increases over time as it weathers or is charged with compost and nutrients. So it makes the composting process all the more important in the biochar life cycle. That we need to age the biochar to make its properties come out more and more, and that's why I'd always uh, like like leave a caution of note that don't try to evaluate biochart's full potential within one crop or within one season or even within 1 year. Understand its properties and then take a bet on it in a way that it would keep on providing to the soil and keep on adding to the benefit or even in terms of financial benefit to a farm. Aging and oxidation, compost or nutrient enrichment, and then exposing more of its surface area, uh, more of the volume of a nugget of biochar making it available. So biochar with high cation capacities is like a rechargeable nutrient battery. That means it can hold on to all the nutrients and give it to the plant slowly one by one whenever it needs, and then hold on to it again. So it's like a rechargeable battery which we use in a phone or laptop. What is biochar's effect on soil pH? Is something that we'll look at. Most biochars are alkaline. There's very rarely anything that comes out as acidic. Most biochars are alkaline because of ash residues that contain positively charged ions, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and all these positively charged ions, which we know as raised pH. So adding biochar to acidic soil in general helps. We can use it as a substitute in place of lime. We have been using lime as a as a alkaline substance that we bring in and change and modify the pH of the soil. We can use biochar in place of lime. Think of biochar like a solid antacid. It buffers pH so that our plants can digest nutrients better. And there is a window of pH between 6.5 to 7.5 where the plant roots can actually absorb the nutrients. Even if the nutrient is present, if the pH is not favorable, the plant won't have the ability to take those nutrients which it actually needs at the. And one other thing, even if biochar starts as a very alkaline substance, aging and weathering slightly brings the pH, uh, drops the pH from this high 8 pH, 9 pH alkaline substance. Over time in the moist soil, it comes down. So we look at what adsorption is capacity. If someone remembers in the first biochar series, we had the same image present, which basically shows the difference between adsorption and absorption. Absorption is when molecules are drawn into the material, and adsorption is where molecules are on the surface of the material, readily available for something that has a better use for that material. So adsorption is a process by which molecules stick to the surface of the solid, in our case, biochar. It should not be confused with absorption, which means something is taken in and utilized. So where does this adsorption come into play when it comes to soils? What biochar can adsorb, and in which use case, how does it help? Let's say as a wastewater treatment. Wastewater is water where it has very high nutrients in general, nitrate, phosphate, lead, and sometimes pollutants like arsenic and cadmium. And biochar can absorb those and clean the water, make it less harmful. Soil amendments, it helps us retain our nutrients, and it also sometimes helps immobilize those pesticides that may be in large quantities already in our soil. It has all these uh, adsorption capabilities that it gets in because of the different size of the pores, and with which it can hold on to gases, especially in the micropores. And odor control is a very good use case for that. Air filtration, similarly, gas, carbon dioxide, volatile organic compounds, and smoke particulates can be held on by biochar. And composting additive. If we bring in biochar during the composting period, it helps make the whole composting process much more efficient, and the nutrients are also retained within the final pile much more efficiently. And it also, of course, helps with the smell, which is one of the pain point when it comes to efficient composting. So biochar is like a sticky sponge for nutrients and pollutants, soaking them up and locking them in place. So the last section that we'll be looking at today is how biochar helps the biology in general, and what properties in biochar contribute to microbial habitat, and then also help in disease suppression. So what feature of biochar helps, how in the microbial benefit we'll look at it. The porosity on the surface area, this is what helps microbes have a good habitat and be away from known predators. If something comes out, if we see that there's a harm outside, we come into our houses and lock the doors up, find our basically come home. So biochar can act as a home for microbes where they are safe and they thrive. The surface area enhances all these activities. Having a large surface area uh, generally helps the microbial population. Moisture. Any life is possible only when there is water or moisture there. So all these microbes need moisture, need water, H2O, to live or have those conditions around them, which are slightly humid and which are kind of microclimates in themselves, where the microbes can survive and thrive. So water retention, because biochar can also retain water and provide this habitat for microbes, it makes it all the more useful. And these are things that we talked about, which even a leaf can give. to microbes. But since that leaf would become the microbial food and then not be there around in a season or two, biochar, on the other hand, since it's very stable form of carbon with the same porosity and everything, is a very long-term carbon source for bacteria, all these, and even for the fungi to thrive. We have seen very good fungal growth in biochar applied soils. And then the functional groups provides binding sites for and chemical cues for colonization, for the microbial colonization. Microbes commonly found in biochar amendment soils. When there's been some studies done. Nitrogen fixers, Rhizobia mastobacter, healthy growth of them was observed in biochar amendment soils. Phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, decomposing bacteria, mycorrhizal fungi. All these help us. All these help us. All these microbes we do need in a very good soil, a very good agriculture. How do we enhance microbial habitat? That's by charging biochar, which we will look at maybe in a future session. What are all the various ways to charge biochar? We can soak biochar in compost tea. We can mix it with powder and slurry. We can mix it, charge it with liquid fertilizers. Everything. So pre-charging ensures microbes have food and nutrients from day one. If we bring microbes to a place and don't provide them with food or nutrients, then they'll die. So what is the right sequence to charge is something that can be taken care of. What happens when biochar is added to soil? Microbial colonization begins in the micropores. Micro-plant interactions really improve. That means the root exits act as a food for microbes, and then the microbes are helping fetch all the right nutrients for the roots. So there will be a very good symbiotic relationship. And biochar creates a hotspot for both the roots and the microbes to come out. Roots come looking for moisture and water. Microbes come looking for the same water, and then they find a very good place to stay, and they become a hotspot of microbe and root activity. These are like small forests within soil, if we have to think that way in terms of the population of microbes. Of course, because of the absorption and cation exchange capacity, the nutrient cycling is very good. It happens very effectively instead of all leaching out or going away, washing away, draining down into the soil. This happens very efficiently. When charged with compost or manure, biochar becomes a biofertilizer booster. It helps better utilize the fertilizer in general, and it helps the microbes. These are some research findings that are there. Fresh biochar alone, it may be inert or even inhibitory at first. That's why it's not recommended to put fresh raw biochar, just fresh raw biochar in today's agricultural soils. We have farming systems where the farmer will be very much dependent on the success of his current crop and would not have the luxury of doing it wrong. So it's important not to put fresh biochar in crops. Always charge it, always. And recharging also helps. Recharged biochar boosts microbial biomass by 2 to 4 times compared to just the soil. Recharged biochar is bringing along with it microbes and also food for the microbes for them to live. And when we see fields that have been using biochar for a long time, we see that there's very resilient, very robust microbial communities, which are very basic for healthy soil and healthy people. So biochar is like coral reef of soil microbes. These are the hotspots offering shelter, food, and a platform for complex interactions. We all know that coral reefs are these places that have with so much diversity of within our seas. So this is an equivalent of coral reef soil. Disease suppression is one of the lesser known but highly promising benefits of biochar in agriculture. It works indirectly. That's why it's not talked about much. It works indirectly by enhancing soil biology. If we have life, if we have the ability to host and keep that life sustained, then uh, then plants get more healthy. And as written, the whole chemistry of soil changes. They become worse, they become more immune, and especially the soil-borne pathogens will be far fewer. We are already 7:30 past, so I think let's just last two slides. So how biochar helps suppress plant diseases, uh, the mechanism and how those mechanism works. Biochar helps enhancing beneficial microbes and which promotes antagonistic bacteria and fungi, example Trichoderma bacillus, absorbs toxins and enzymes, which binds with pathogen-provided enzymes toxins, improves soil health and soil aeration and drainage. It buffers soil pH, induces systemic resistance. This is a long-term immunity that happens. Pathogens biochar can suppress, which has been observed. The list of pathogens or diseases, the crops that they are usually affecting, and observed effect when biochar is used. Tomato, banana, it's reduced wilt and root rot. Multiple vegetables, reducing damping of tomatoes, reduce seedling diseases. Cotton, potato, tomato, reduce diseases and reduce infection rates. So biochar in general acts like a fortress wall. It's like killer, it's a fort, giving friendly microbes shelter and locking out the invaders and creating that barrier between the two and warning a plant when trouble is near. Impacts on soil. Soil structure is improved, carbon sequestration, water purification. We'll get into that. In the interest of time, I'll probably quickly run through this. So easy root penetration happens when we have biochar in the soil for a longer time. We see that the soil structure starts to change. Imagine biochar being put in a sandy soil, in a desert soil where water would not stay for a long time. Biochar now can hold on to that water, attract microbes, create those places, sticky places, gooey places where soil uh, soil structure changes, and because of that, a lot of nutrients and water come into one place, and in general, these places become very ideal for roots and can reduce the erosion as well. How biochar enhance soil structure because of its porosity, because of its ability to aggregate surface charge, water retention. Basically, biochar is like a scaffolding in soil, holding particles apart just enough to let roots, water, and microbes move freely. So, this is a great benefit. And thank you. And I think our next session will be on carbon cycle and how it helps in the carbon cycle. It's very important context because of which biochar is being heard a lot nowadays, because we are also in the climate change era and we have to do something about the excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And
Thank you. Now move to Q&A session. Anybody have any question? Please unmute and you can put your question in chat box, and also in the live session, YouTube, Facebook, and in LinkedIn Live. Please put in your question in comment box. Anybody have any questions? Please unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Tejas, this is Anand. Tejas, can you hear me? Tejas is there? I think lost
yes,
him
yes,
for a
yes,
connection. Let's wait till he gets back.
yes, yes.
We're just waiting on Tejas to get back. We've lost him for I think maybe a technical issue. He should be back soon.
Yes.
Tejas, are you back? Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, sorry. I'm back. I think the worst happened.
Always. Can you
Please,
change the medical landscape more? Can you? Yeah, there we go. Much better. Yep, that's good. All right, I'll go with the question first, Tejas. So, ash is also produced along with biochar. So when we produce biochar, do we clean the biochar completely of ash, or does it go and stick inside as well into these micropores? Because those are also fine particles. And if it does stick, then how does that change, all the properties that you've talked about? That's the first question.
So whenever we are making biochar, we'll try to keep the ash content very low. And that would be the effort. Like, no matter what people say, I think making biochar, whether it is with a very big pyrolyzer or uh, uh, the pit, both are artisanal because one has to know how to operate the machine also, which is an artisanal thing in itself, apart from running. Okay, so coming to the question, the goal of making biochar in general in today's world is to keep the ash content to the minimum, most minimum as possible. And because we are targeting that, the surface area of the end biochar to the amount of ash that might have crept in would be very low. We have seen one of the test reports in the previous meeting. If my laptop comes in, I'll try to show that. But in general, what we say is the ash content will be very less when the biochar is made in the right form. So having that ash come and be be attracted or adsorbed into the whole of surface area of biochar that's made is rarely the case. So it doesn't alter the whole batch of biochar, but ash in itself is also a very good source of potassium, and there could be a very good chance that when we have the leftover ash there, that could be absorbed by biochar and made available to plants in general. Ash is also a very important soil additive, and soils, it's beneficial to bring ash into the soil. Where we try to be more careful is how much ash are we creating, because nowadays we are making biochar not just for soil amendment purpose, but also with a very conscious attempt to lock carbon away. And when if we are locking carbon away, then we have to put off the pyrolysis or stop the pyrolysis because before the ash is coming. And if we are using biochar in soils, I don't think we have to we need to wash away all the ash and have the ash come back into our soils. Either it is through adsorbed ash within the biochar or ash that comes off or runs off with the quench water. Quench water also has very high pH, and limited use of it in general is also pretty good in soils.
Okay, I'll wait for my
Anand,
subsequent
I
question.
think you
Yeah.
lost my you lost my video, but that is fine. My video is still on. I think if the light comes, it's there. I'm near a farm, so there's a power cut.
Right.
okay. Next question from Pratiksha. Uh, uh, I have one question. It's possible to calculate the amount of water that can be retained in the soil after the application of biochar.
So,
Hello, Tejas.
yes, sorry.
Yes.
Thing happened. My microphone was muted. I think it's back on. So we looked at water holding capacity of biochar, and the water holding capacity is because of various properties. It's because of the surface area as well as the porosity. It's not just one or the other, but to have a very rough guideline, we can have 3 to 6 times more water than the weight of biochar retained. So it becomes how much biochar did we add and what is the water holding capacity, additional water holding capacity because of the biochar that we have. But if we wait patiently a few more years, then the biochar could have helped change the soil structure. And when the soil structure begins to change, we will start to see more water holding capacity inherently built in the soil. So it's a compounding effect that one could have if they're also focusing on the biological side of biochar and not just the absorption and chemical fertilizer side of biochar. So water holding capacity starts initially, it will be hydrophobic like a lotus leaf, and it will not let the water come into it. But when it starts to age, it can hold on to more and more water and moisture. So because of biochar, there is one level of increase in water holding capacity. And once biochar comes in, brings in all the right microbes, changes the soil structure. Changed soil structure also can improve the water holding capacity. So there is some that we can expect. It depends on how much biochar was put in. But if we can clearly calculate the water holding capacity of a chunk of biochar very simply, as we have seen in one of the slides.
Can I come in?
Yes.
Yes. So can you hear me? So so you are suggesting that what we can do, we can go for the initial testing of the soil and we can calculate the water holding capacity of the soil. Okay. Then after the application of the biochar, we can see the improved water holding capacity. We can have that. And maybe after repeatedly application of 2 to 3 years or 4 years, we can get the increased water holding capacity. So this way we can have a baseline, and over the years we can have an increased value for the water holding capacity, which will say that this much water has been retained by the soil over the years because of the activity of the biochar.
Yes, I mean, totally. Yes, totally. We can do a very simple pot test. You could have, let's say, even a 2 or 3 different pots, and let's say bring the first pot can have totally just the soil from our control section. The second pot could have soil as 75% and biochar in whichever form that you choose, whether it's a crushed powder or some nuggets and some powder. That again has to be constant for the other ones. And then third, fourth, fifth pot in various amounts of biochar to this. And it could be measured in different ways. You could give, let's say, a liter of water to each pot and see how much of it is drained off in each of these. And you could try and do this every day so that more and more properties of biochar open up in general. And water retention capability also increases with the age of biochar. And other way to test this is plant something, but give the same amount of water to every pot, which of course we know that it's lesser water for the control soil. And the control soil, because it got lesser water, it will probably do a little bad than when it would have given enough water. But you will start to see that in the other pots where we have higher water retention capability because of biochar will thrive for longer. So there are different pot tests that can be done for beautifully seeing this demonstration in life, in action. So yes, ma'am, definitely. And for a given soil profile and given biochar profile, one could calculate the percentage of increase in water holding capacity in the final mix.
So my other question is that we are working with farmers. So if I'll conduct this kind of an experiment, it will be with the farmers. So is it possible that these kind of values I can calculate, I can test them in the lab and calculate and see that, and you can explain it to the farmer that by application of the biochar, you are this much water is being retained, or maybe.
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
Because
I mean,
for
a
sorry to cut you in between. But when we talk about the potted experiment, it's completely controlled. It's in our hand. But when we say about the farmer field, it's out of control. Sometimes he applies, sometimes he doesn't apply. So what I was thinking that I can take a small patch, a 10 by 10 centimeter patch or something like that, and I'll get the experiment done there and compare it with the 10 farmers, and accordingly I will collect the soils and do the experiment and see how much water holding capacity is increasing. Is it possible? Can I do it in this way?
Definitely. You could do a slightly larger pot is a field trial.
Yeah.
And there have been wonderful field trials that have been formulated by various people around. And you can have these pots, and usually be careful where you pick this plot, because it has to be, it either has to be big or in triplicates, so that we know that we are seeing the consistent result in each of the sample. Or I mean, it has to be patient enough so that the farmer doesn't come and plow it through and
yeah.
and
These are the
have it.
challenges with the field
Yes.
experiments if you do.
Yes. So in general, having triplicates of it or even multiple copies of it and seeing that pattern repeat in different places in that field trial would be good. Will add to the confidence of the study.
So my next question is that, can we see that over the years, by the application of the biochar, the water scarcity issue can be solved? Can we put it in this way?
Yes. I mean, that's the value proposition also here, that I mean, firstly, water is held on to much more efficiently, not just water. Nutrients are also held on to much more efficiently, and even microbes are also held on to much more efficiently, because of which the soil structure starts to change. The water stress, I mean, the farm can handle, the trees can handle longer, drier spells, and they wouldn't need where earlier there was 1 liter of water required. Now there would be 700 or 800 ml of water required. So the overall stress in a landscape level region also comes down if everyone has this material in their farms, in their soils. Definitely.
Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks
presentation.
Thank you. Some question from social side. So the Deepak Patil from YouTube. Can we use papaya and banana fruit and stem as a feedstock for biochar, as in our area? There more residue is available due to
Yes.
fluctuating in rates. My area is district Nandurbar, Taluka, Shahada, Maharashtra.
Sorry, Deepak, I couldn't talk to you the other day. Yes, Deepak has asked this question. And so banana stem and one other thing that he said, sorry, was papaya.
Papaya.
Yes. So ideally, on paper and in small quantities, anything could be converted into biochar. But but things to be considered or be careful about is the moisture content of the starting material when you start to do. Of course, papaya stem leaves, banana stem leaves could also be dried well enough that their moisture comes down. The question would be, how large of a scale will you be doing? If I have to put myself in your shoes, Deepak, if it is just a few half acre, 1 acre of papaya leaves and dry banana stem, then yes, I'll take the effort to dry them and bring them to moisture of below 15% and then convert them into biochar. But let's say if I have acres and acres of banana stock, then I would probably look at composting them, because they already have that moisture, right moisture, which is ideal for composting. So I would probably chop them up and bring decomposing bacteria into it and bring biochar for better decomposing of this whole banana stem. And same with papaya leaves. Papaya leaves, although by the time they are falling off the tree, they are very dry. But that depends on the quantity that you have, because it's a stem and a leaf, everything. So you might want to, if you have large quantities of it, you might want to chop it in the right size and use a screw method, screw retort or something. But in general, anything can be converted into biochar. You just need to ensure that the moisture of the starting feedstock is less for you to utilize the heat that is spent in pyrolysis and not in removing moisture. If you have this in large quantities, consider composting it. If you have it in small quantities, definitely try making biochar with it, especially the banana stem.
Again, next question from social site, Facebook, Mr. Prakash Khedkar. Sir, what is the best way to fortify biochar before applying to soil?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What is the best way to fortify biochar before applying to soil?
What is the best way to fortify biochar whether applying soil? I mean, if you want a best way, it is usually slower way. The reason is biochar's properties unlock slowly. Like we saw, even the cation exchange capacity of the biochar is not readily available. The potential cation exchange capacity. Fortification again means that bringing something into biochar and biochar holding on to that, which again comes to adsorption and cation exchange capacity in general. So if I were to tell what is the best way to charge biochar, then slow charging is the best way to charge biochar. And be very patient with it. For example, one of the person in the previous sessions was telling that he has put biochar under his cattle in this cattle shed, where cattle are coming every day, crushing it, making the surface area more and more available every day, and letting that biochar be in presence of cow urine, cow dung, nutrients, runoff, everything. So it's aging, it's maturing, it's charging. So it takes time for each one of these square centimeter, square foot to be exposed to the charging or fortification medium. So one of the best ways is to slow charge biochar. If you have the amount of biochar with you, if you have the time with you, charge it as slow as possible and bring it. If you are in a hurry, then maybe put it in a compost tea and put a small bubbler in the compost tea. If you have a little bit more time than 1 or 2 days, and you can mix it with compost, then mix it with very good quality compost and let it soak up all the nutrients. If you have more time than that, do a co-composting method where you are bringing biochar even before the composting process has begun, and then make biochar part of the composting process. That way, biochar will have lot more time to have the decomposing bacteria also habitate that biochar, decompose it, die, become part of biochar or get absorbed by biochar. So that's also a very good way. So it's usually slow. Cation exchange capacity doesn't unlock in day 1 or day 10 or even first month. Depends on the size of the particle, the surface area that's made available, the porosity and everything. So quick ways are there, slow but very efficient ways are also there. It depends on the time budget that one has and also the quantity and the timelines in which one has to use biochar.
Okay. Anybody have any question? Please, you can unmute and ask the question. Okay. Again, one more question. Sir, any research data on which manures is the best to mix with it? Tejas? Hello, Tejas? Might be stuck, you think. Hello, Tejas?
Yeah, I think Tejas is having some technical issues.
I'm very sorry.
Yes, yes.
Very sorry.
And next question. Any research data on which manure is the best to mix with it?
Any research data on?
Data on which manure is the best to mix with it? We mix with biochar.
I mean, which is the best? I don't know if there is enough data there, but there are many studies that show the effect of biochar with equal amounts of compost and also co-composting with farmyard manure. But usually, whatever we have, the manure, biochar becomes a very local thing because you don't want biochar mixed with compost to be transported to large distances. So it's okay to transport biochar to reasonably longer distances, but the mixing happens mostly of times locally in the surroundings of the farmer. So farmyard manure is good. Vermicompost has very good vermicompost and biochar go in very well. So vermicompost would be a very top one for it. But you could probably do it with anything. You could also have it in your chicken litter and co-compost your chicken litter with biochar. It will make for a wonderful final compost mix. You could mix it with all the fish amino acid, eggs amino acids of the world. And yeah, I mean, there's no easy and right answer for it when someone asks for the best compost, but anything that one has available in their location and that can be used efficiently is the right answer for it. But there are considerable number of users where vermicompost used as a standard or as a compost available in more than one regions. But again, we all know earthworms come in various sizes and shapes, and vermicompost also comes in various shapes and qualities. So there's no one good answer for it, at least with me.
Next question. Next question is which is the proportion of biochar to increase organic carbon by 1%? Tejas,
So so biochar, there's various forms of carbon that we have, and biochar I would talk about it as a fixed carbon, and although it technically is carbon coming from organic sources, all the other organicness in this carbon has been removed away. When we studied chemistry in school, when we started looking at carbon, oxygen, everything as different elements. When we started studying organic carbon, we started understanding the compounds, molecules that come together, mainly carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, to form organic molecules. And whenever carbon is present in its organic molecular form, that carbon is the form of carbon that contributes the organic carbon, SOC, or SOM, solid organic matter. But biochar is a very elemental form of carbon. So you will find that fixed in the total carbon, you will see biochar come in, or in the fixed carbon, you will see biochar come in. But biochar by itself is not organic carbon. It should not be mistaken for organic carbon. It's a very stable, fixed form of carbon, which could play the part of eventually getting to a good, healthy soil organic carbon number, because it has water holding capacity, which can attract and maintain microbes. And this medium present in a dead root could start something very good in terms of decomposing, making the dead plants, dead roots, nutrients back available to the carbon. So coming back to the question and answer, soil organic carbon is not biochar. Biochar is not directly related to soil organic carbon. Biochar is a fixed carbon. It comes as a fixed carbon or total carbon, which can play a very good role in increasing the soil organic carbon.
hello, hello.
Yeah, look,
Yes,
Tejas, okay,
so
okay. Anand, you can ask
yes,
question.
Vishan, I'm
I
audible?
have a question.
Uh,
Yeah, Tejas, are you there?
Yes, yes, Anand, I can hear you.
Okay,
Am I
so
audible?
yeah, so I was doing some experimentation with lime juice and biochar, charging initially with lime juice because they said it changes and helps in more absorption. So is there some science behind it that you're trying to, I'm assuming, alter the pH because of an acid, and altering the pH helps in more absorption of some ions, be it sulfur or magnesium or anything else, ferrous.
Yeah, so the process of making activated carbon is essentially steaming it and cleaning it with acid. If you have to put it in very simple terms, it's the steam and acid helps clean off any and open up these extra pores and increase the adsorption capabilities, increase the available surface area within the biochar. But when we are talking about biochar as a soil amendment, then I don't think a farmer would have the luxury of having so much acid and so much steam and the apparatus to to clean it, to clean all of his tons of biochar with that. And this probably is more for more sophisticated users of biochar or charcoal. And biochar, when we want to use it for a very specific wastewater treatment or removing contaminants and all, yes, steaming and cleaning with acid increases or makes more of that surface area available in general. That won't be economical for a farmer. I wouldn't do it as a farmer unless I have a real use case for it.
Okay, my third question was, when we make biochar, there are some unwanted substances also produced. Like, you just mentioned VOCs. There's some also polyaromatic hydrocarbons, and sorry if I'm wrong on this. So do those things stick with the biochar depending on the process we choose? Is that toxic in the biochar we produce and that sticks with it throughout its life? Or can that be washed away? Am I making sense?
Yes. Yes, there are enough scenarios, there are decent scenarios where biochar not produced the right way and used it in wrong use case could be harmful. For example, we wouldn't want biochar that's not right be used as a pigment and be given to a kid to hold in his hand and do a crayon with. So yes, maybe in soil amendment, it would eventually get nullified and everything, but there are definitely PACs and PFAs that could come into. PFAs are not necessarily in the plant material, they come from other chemicals, but PACs, polyaromatic carbons, are very harmful. But let's say in open pit way of making biochar, the temperatures are usually high, and once someone is properly trained and has understood cooking in general, in feedstock cooking into biochar, the chances of eliminating PAC contamination biochar can be very healthy. Like one by properly being trained, they can make biochar which with a very degree of confidence that it wouldn't have PACs. But if there are PACs in biochar, that should not be used as a cattle. Biochar be used in many other places apart from soil. Like for example, cattle feed, pigments, materials, and everything. And all these places should use biochar, which are devoid and don't have PACs. And if there are, that could be a very hazardous scenario. And some of these are very harmful materials and cancerous materials as well. So soil amendment, eventually we have lower thresholds for that, thresholds for that. But if we have to use this biochar in any form that we are getting into physical contact with it, or maybe chances of absorption or inhalation, these have to be very careful. So I can't put a crayon in a kid's hand saying that it is a pigment and made with a stick without ensuring that the process is good enough that there are no PACs developed in it. So yes, depending on the final use case, a lot of safeguards have come in place for biochar production.
Anybody have any question? Please unmute and ask the question.
I'm sorry for my poor network. I'm in a tier 3 tier.
तेजस, और एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा है, हिंदी में पूछ रहा मैं कि सॉइल पीएच एंड बायोचार का पीएच या बायोचार एंड सॉइल पीएच, इसके बारे में कुछ ये है कि चलो सॉइल पीएच आपका न्यूट्रल से आगे रहे तो आप बायोचार कैसे यूज करने का, सॉइल पीएच अपना न्यूट्रल से पीछे रहे तो आप बायोचार कितना यूज करने का, और ये कैसा यूज करने का ये दोनों का पीएच का हिसाब से, तो इसके बारे में आप क्या बात कर सकते
यस।
हैं?
हाँ, सो बायोचार यूजुअली अगर बहुत ज़्यादा, बायोचार बेसिकली अल्कलाइन सब्सटेंस है। मतलब पीएच इसका 7 से ऊपर रहता है जनरली, 8, 8.5, 9 के ऊपर भी जाता है कभी कभी। तो यूजुअली जहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा बारिश होती है वो वाला हिस्से में नेचुरली सॉइल एसिडिक हो जाता है, जिसका मतलब 7 से नीचे पीएच आता है। एंड उस रीजन्स में लाइम बहुत ज़्यादा यूज होता है टू टू ब्रिंग दैट पीएच बैक टू 7 के पास लाने के लिए लाइम का एक्सटेंसिवली यूज होता है। और लाइम की जगह बायोचार यूज कर सकते हैं। बट बायोचार का एज वी हैव, मतलब हमने डिटेल में देखा है कि उसका उसका सरफेस एरिया अवेलेबल होने के लिए कभी कभी टाइम लगता है। सो इतना बायोचार इतना खेत में जाना है तो किस फॉर्म में गया है, वो पाउडरी फॉर्म में गया है जहाँ पर होल ऑफ द सरफेस एरिया इज अवेलेबल टू इंटरेक्ट। मैं एक एसिड को एक कंटेनर में बंद करके एक बेस में डाल सकता हूँ कि रिएक्शन ही ना हो, बट जो भी सरफेस एरिया अवेलेबल है उस एसिड का, वो बेस के साथ रिएक्ट करके न्यूट्रलाइज या बॉम्ब की तरह हो जाता है यूजुअली। तो कितना अवेलेबल मेड अवेलेबल है इस पीएच का सरफेस एरिया, उस पर काफी मैटर करता है कि कितना आल्टर हो रहा है। वो प्रॉब्लम लाइव में नहीं है क्योंकि पूरा लाइम एक पाउडरी सब्सटेंस होता है, तो करेक्टली हम बता सकते हैं कि इतना लाइम डालने पे ये इफेक्ट देख सकते हैं। बट बायोचार में किस प्रॉपर्टी में डाला है, कैसे डाला है, कितना एज्ड है, उसके हिसाब से चेंजेस आएंगे। एंड बायोचार में ओवर टाइम उसका पीएच थोड़ा सा घटना पॉसिबल है, स्पेशली व्हेन इट हैज मॉइस्चर अराउंड इट, और H+ आयोन्स जो आते हैं ना वो सब अराउंड इट, उसका एड्सॉर्प्शन कैपेबिलिटी के वजह से भी पीएच बायोचार का भी एज होते होते थोड़ा सा कम होता है और 7 के पास आ जाता है विथ वेरियस एसिड्स, डेड माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स, डेड कार्बोनिक एसिड्स, ये सब जब फॉर्म होता है। अनदर थिंग इज ऑल द थिंग्स दैट वी क्रिएट, ये चाहे जीवामृत हो या कुछ और फर्मेंट हो जो यूजुअली इंडियन एग्रीकल्चर में करते हैं, वो सारे एसिडिक फॉर्मुलेशंस हैं। जीवामृत का 5 अराउंड 5 रहता है, 5.5 पीएच। सो वो अगर उसमें अगर बायोचार इनॉक्यूलेट किया हमने, तो बायोचार का थोड़ा बहुत एटलीस्ट द सरफेस एरिया जो अवेलेबल है उसका पीएच थोड़ा सा कम होते आएगा, टुवर्ड्स द 7 आ सकता है। तो पीएच करेक्ट करने के लिए एसिड्स यूज कर सकते हैं और ये फॉर्मेंट्स यूज कर सकते हैं, और थोड़ा बहुत वट एवर द सरफेस एरिया वो अवेलेबल है उसका पीएच 7 तक लाके अपन दे सकते
ओके, ओके। और एक क्वेश्चन आया है कि अभी समझ के चलो कि सॉइल सलाइन है, मतलब प्रॉब्लमेटिक सॉइल्स रहता है ज्यादातर, कुछ सलाइन रहता है, कुछ अल्कलाइन रहता है, कुछ सलाइन फ्लूइडिक रहता है, तो साल का प्रमाण ज्यादा होता है, तो
हैं। हाँ,
इस कंडीशन में हम बायोचार डाल के कुछ साल्ट का
हाँ।
ऑब्जर्वेशन ऑब्जर्वेशन कर सकते हैं क्या वो बायोचार में, और इसमें वो
एक्चुअली
कितना हेल्पफुल रह सकता है वो सॉइल के लिए?
यस। सो कोई भी, मतलब जब हम सोचते हैं तो अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में बायोचार नहीं डालते हैं। अल्कलाइन सॉलिड्स में इसलिए, मतलब कोई भी बोलेगा कि अल्कलाइन सॉलिड्स में बायोचार नहीं डालना चाहिए, नहीं डालते। तब ये तब तक सही है जब हम सिर्फ बायोचार को अपना पीएच के वजह से यूज करेंगे। लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में लाइम नहीं डालना चाहिए, ये सही स्टेटमेंट है क्योंकि लाइम सिर्फ पीएच या उसका न्यूट्रिएंट के वजह से यूज करते हैं। बट बायोचार में पीएच के अलावा बहुत सारे प्रॉपर्टीज है, और हमने एक्चुअली नॉट टू फार फ्रॉम आवर प्लेस, अपने एक फार्म के काफी पास में अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में बायोचार का इफेक्ट देखने के लिए, लॉन्ग टर्म में बायोचार इफेक्ट कैसा रहता है देखने के लिए एक प्रयोग किया है, और वो चलता जा रहा है, चलता आ रहा है भी उसका controls. तो इसमें क्या महत्वपूर्ण था कि जब बायोचार लाया गया है उसके वजह से वाटर रिटेंशन और मॉइस्चर अवेलेबिलिटी बढ़ गया है, जिसके वजह से माइक्रोब्स आ रहा है, और माइक्रोब्स आने के बाद एक्टिविटी स्टार्ट हुआ है। और जब एक्टिविटी स्टार्ट होता है माइक्रोब्स कम इन, माइक्रोब्स लिव, और वो मर जाते हैं। जब मर जाते हैं उनके बॉडी के जो रिमेनिंग पार्ट्स वो सब एसिड्स की तरह रह जाता है। सो बायोचार के वजह से मे बी पीएच बढ़ गया हो सकता है, बट बायोचार का जो आफ्टर इफेक्ट्स है, बायोचार का एबिलिटी टू होल्ड ऑन टू मॉइस्चर, एबिलिटी टू ब्रिंग माइक्रोब्स, एंड इनके वजह से दे डेफिनेटली स्टार्टेड एक चेन स्टार्ट हुआ, जिसके वजह से ओवरऑल सॉइल का स्ट्रक्चर चेंज होता आया और उसका पीएच भी अल्कलाइन से टुवर्ड्स न्यूट्रल ट्रेंड एस्टैब्लिश हुआ है, एटलीस्ट इन द ट्रायल्स। सो अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में भी बायोचार यूज कर सकते हैं, बट काफी दिमाग लगा के यूज करना है। अगर किसी ने ऑलरेडी काम किया है अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में बायोचार के साथ, उनका या वो एक दो केस स्टडी देख के समझ के करना बेटर रहेगा। एसिडिक सॉइल्स में ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बिंदास यूज कर सकते हैं, मतलब ज़्यादा टेंशन की बात नहीं है। बट अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में थोड़ा सॉइल टेस्ट करके कैसा है, डिफरेंट किस प्रपोर्शन में बायोचार यूज करना है, सब देख के करना चाहिए। एंड देयर आर सम स्टडीज उनके बारे में है।
ओके ओके। क्या हो रहा है तेजस, इधर फार्मर लोग है ना, शुगर केन ग्रो कर रहा है, तो पानी का जो इरिगेशन का जो स्थिति है वो वाटर स्टैग्नेशन होता है उसका फील्ड में ज्यादातर टाइम। तो वो जो सॉइल है वो साल्टी हो जाता है। तो मेरा इधर स्थिति ऐसा है कि लोग क्रॉप रोटेशन में सेकंड क्रॉप गेहूं लेता है, वो भी साल्ट टोलरेंट है। तो ऐसा कुछ आइडिया करता है या लीचिंग सॉइल वॉशिंग या लीचिंग के थ्रू वो साल्ट निकालने का ट्राई करता है। तो इधर कुछ बायोचार कुछ इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं या बायोचार कुछ हेल्प कर सकता है कि वो साल्टी सॉइल है उसको
डेफिनेटली कर सकते हैं, बिकॉज यूजुअली हम पुराने जमाने में मतलब ज्यादा नमक हुआ तो एक कोयला का पीस डालते था
यस।
सब्जी में। तो इसलिए क्योंकि ज्यादा नमक हो गया था, उस नमक को पकड़ के रखेगा, बाकी सारा सब्जी को ठीक कर देता था वो। सो
ओके
अभी प्रॉब्लम मोस्ट ऑफ द एग्रीकल्चरल सॉइल्स में यही है कि सॉल्ट ज्यादा हो गया, मतलब यूरिया ज्यादा हो गया, डीएपी ज्यादा हो गया, पोटेश ज्यादा हो गया और सॉल्ट ज्यादा हो गया। और इतना सॉल्ट जब है तो वो स्वाद लिया नहीं जाता है, इवन फॉर माइक्रोब्स। उस सॉल्ट को थोड़ा कोई खींच के पकड़ के रखने का टाइम आ गया, जो बायोचार कर सकता है। सो डेफिनेटली वो हेल्प करेगा। और शुगर केन में जो वाटर की मतलब नीड है, वो भी बायोचार आई थिंक पूरे अच्छे तरीके से इट विल बी एबल टू डू। ज़्यादा समय तक मॉइस्चर रखेगा, और शुगर केन को इतना चाहिए फॉर द होल इनर पार्ट ऑफ द शुगर केन टू फॉर्म, उसके लिए हेल्प करेगा डेफिनेटली।
ओके।
एंड
थैंक यू।
उस सॉल्ट को पकड़ के अवेलेबल कराना, और पूरा मिट्टी में सॉल्ट का कंसंट्रेशन को थोड़ा बहुत कम करके उस सॉल्ट को एक जगह कंसंट्रेट करने का काम बायोचार करेगा, जिसके वजह से बाकी का मिट्टी में इन जनरल थोड़ा सा नमक कम होगा और माइक्रोब्स आके वापस रहने की कोशिश कर सकते हैं। सो दिस कैन बी वेरी हेल्पफुल इन अब्यूज्ड सॉइल्स जिसमें ज़्यादा डाला गया। यस।
ओके। थैंक यू अनवर। आपका क्वेश्चन है अनवर?
नमस्कार सर, मी भानुदास वनारे बोलतोय. माझा प्रश्न असा आहे, आपण ऍसिडिक म्हणजे तर निंबू पासून
पानू
एंजाइम बनवल्या जाते तर
पानू पानू हिंदी
हाँ
प्लीज.
हाँ ठीक है सर जी. लेमन से जो अपना एसिडिक जो है एंजाइम बनाते हैं, लेमन नींबू का, तो एंजाइम
हम्म।
उसमें अपन यूज कर सकते हैं क्या सर जी अपना बायोचार? एक और दूसरा क्वेश्चन एक है कि अभी जानवर के लिए पेट में कीड़े होते हैं या कुछ भी, तो ऐसा वो इसका मिनरल वीट वो जो देते हैं, तो इसका तो बायोचार का उसका ईट बना के थोड़ा उसको कितना चाटन और कितना खाना दे सकते हैं बायोचार गाय के लिए?
ओके, मैं आई लाइक टू verify those questions probably with you, Anant. Number one is कि he said about नींबू का जूस जो एसिडिक रहता है, उससे क्या कर सकते हैं क्या बायोचार का, ये मुझे समझ नहीं।
बायो एंजाइम जो बनाते हैं
अच्छा।
नींबू के जूस से,
हाँ
उसको
हाँ।
बायोचार को चार्ज करते हैं क्या? बायो
यस।
के साथ बायोचार को चार्ज कर सकते हैं क्या? दैट वाज
बहुत अच्छे तरीके से कर सकते हैं। मेरा एक अच्छा दोस्त है जो बहुत बायोएंजाइम्स बना रहा है, और बायोएंजाइम्स का भी जीवामृत की तरह 5 या 5.5 का पीएच रहता है। बहुत सही है बायोचार को उसमें मिला के। बायो एंजाइम में जो अच्छा न्यूट्रिएंट्स है वो सब अब्जॉर्ब हो जाएंगे बायोचार में, और उन सबको इफेक्टिवली जड़ इस्तेमाल कर पाएंगे। और उसके साथ साथ बायोचार का भी पीएच घटेगा, क्योंकि उसके साथ एक एसिडिक बायो एंजाइम आ रहा है, और उसका भी पीएच करेक्शन होके हेल्दी 6.5 to 7.5 के बीच में ला सकते हैं बायो एंजाइम से मिला के। तो वो दैट वाज फर्स्ट। सेकंड वन, मुझे आई अंडरस्टूड कि उसका जिन जिन या पोल्ट्री का पेट ठीक नहीं है, उसमें बायोचार का
हाँ,
क्या इधर।
बायोचार का इस्तेमाल इनको कभी कभी इसका डाइजेशन के लिए बायोचार उसको खिलाना कितना चाहिए, या सही है क्या वो?
देखो जी, अगर सही बायोचार है तो वो हेल्प करेगा। इसका एक प्रूफ देने के लिए, अगर कोई इंसान को पॉइजनिंग हो गया और वो इमरजेंसी हॉस्पिटल में इमरजेंसी में जाता है, और किसी का पॉइजनिंग हो गया पेट में, तो पहला चीज उसको एक इमरजेंसी डॉक्टर देता है, वो एक्टिवेटेड बायोचार का टैबलेट देता है, ताकि टैबलेट उसके डाइजेस्टिव सिस्टम में जाके यही चीजें एब्जॉर्प्शन करे, और पॉइजन को डाइजेस्ट होने ना दे, जिससे हानि हो सकता है, और वो कभी कभी बाहर आ जाता है, इधर वॉमिट की तरह हो या बिफोर बिफोर विदाउट गेटिंग डाइजेस्टेड की तरह हो। तो देर आर, मतलब ये बोलने का मतलब है कि उसका सही उपयोग है इस यूज केस में लिए। बट साथ साथ, अगर बायोचार सही नहीं है और अच्छा नहीं है, अगर लेट्स से उसमें पीएसी जिनकी जिक्र किया है अभी थोड़ी देर पहले वो है, तो वो काफी हानिकारक भी हो सकता है। तो अगर आपको किसी को खिलाना है बायोचार, चाहे वो जानवर हो या आदमी हो, आप काफी कॉन्फिडेंट होना चाहिए कि कैसे बनाया है, क्या बना है, कहाँ टेस्ट कराया है, ये सब। अगर ये नहीं है तो चांसेस मत लीजिए, एटलीस्ट बाहर के लोगों के साथ। तो आप काफी कॉन्फिडेंट रहिए आपके बायोचार कैसे बना हुआ है, क्या प्रॉपर्टीज है उसका। और अगर किसी चीज को खिला रहे हैं तो वो काफी हाई टेम्परेचर बायोचार होना चाहिए। काफी हाई टेम्परेचर में ये पीएफएस सब न्यूट्रलाइज हो जाता है। अगर लो टेम्परेचर 350-400 में बनाया हुआ बायोचार है, तो उनमें मोर चांसेस है यानी हार्मफुल सब्सटेंसेस रहने का। तो आपके बायोचार के बारे में आपको पूरा कॉन्फिडेंस होना चाहिए, तभी ये काम करिए।
ठीक है।
तो
सर जी एक और, सॉरी, एक और कि अपन अभी ये कॉटन का सब बायोचार हर जगह जगह पे कॉटन का बना रहे हैं, तो कॉटन का अभी कैसा, वो कॉटन का है तो वो भी जानवर को खिलाना अच्छा है क्या, एक?
नहीं जी,
और
नहीं।
दूसरा
जो बाहर
दूसरा
बात,
बायोचार,
हाँ सॉरी, खत्म, फिनिश करिए आपका।
हाँ, और दूसरा बायोचार जब हम आदमी के लिए जैसा अपना मानव अपने लिए करने का रहा, तो नींबू, आम, या उसमें कौन कौन से झाड़ का अपन खुद के लिए, तुमने जैसा मेरा कंपटीशन, कि मेरा पूरा खुद के ऊपर भरोसा है कि मेरे को बनाना है, तो मैं कौन से अपने लिए बनाना है, मेरे के लिए बनाना है, तो वो कौन से झाड़ का बनाना है कि मैं अपना परिवार या मानवी किसी को खिलाना है?
वो मतलब, ओके, पहला, ओके, सेकंड प्रश्न याद है मुझे। ये इस कॉल में हम वो टॉपिक कवर नहीं कर रहे हैं भानुदास जी,
सॉरी,
और ये हम
सॉरी
सॉइल
सर
अमेंडमेंट
जी।
की ही बात कर रहे हैं। और मेडिकल एक्सपर्ट्स होना चाहिए उसमें। तो मैं तो नहीं बोलूंगा कोई भी नीम हो या आम हो, मैं नहीं बोलूंगा अगर आप ह्यूमन कंजम्पशन के लिए बोलोगे, क्योंकि गलत होने के चांसेस रहते हैं, और जब होते हैं तो वो खराब हो सकते हैं। और ये ऐसे पब्लिक प्लेटफॉर्म्स में इसकी मतलब करना नहीं चाहिए। वो अगर आप खुद से कर रहे हो तो कोई रोक नहीं पाएंगे, बट काफी केयरफुल रहना चाहिए। आ, ये बोलने के बाद एक और चीज अगर मुझे बोलना है तो ये पूरा टेम्परेचर का खेल है। अगर आपका बायोचार का फीड स्टॉक अच्छे से ड्राइड है, अगर आपका बायोचार का फीड स्टॉक में आपको पता है कि कंटामिनेंट्स नहीं है, कहाँ से आ रहे हैं आपको पता है, ये सब है, और काफी अच्छे कंडीशंस में काफी हाई टेम्परेचर्स में अगर बना है, तो चांसेस हो सकते हैं कि उसमें हार्मफुल चीजें ना हो। अगर हार्मफुल चीजें ना हो, वो भी अगर आपने बहुत ज्यादा चीजें ज्यादा खा लिया तो वो नुकसान ही करेगा। काफी लिमिटेड अमाउंट्स में, काफी रेयरली ये अच्छा चीज है। अगर सब नहीं है तो हर दिन शायद तो दंत मंजन टाइप्स वो कर सकते हैं और उसको थूक सकते हैं, बट ह्यूमन कंजम्पशन के लिए ये सेशन नहीं है। ये सॉइल और एग्रीकल्चरल यूज के लिए ही हम बात करेंगे। उसमें नहीं जाना चाहिए हमें अभी एटलीस्ट, क्योंकि
ओके,
चांसेस ऑफ गोइंग रॉन्ग ज्यादा हो सकते हैं।
थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
The first question Tejas was on cotton biostock. तो वो हम
यस।
पूछा था कि cotton
कॉटन
biostock, cotton
कॉटन
biostock जानवर
कॉटन
को दे सकते
बायोचार गाय
हाँ।
को दे सकते हैं या नहीं? मैं तो बोलता हूँ मत दीजिए। क्योंकि अगर आप कॉटन बायोस्टॉक बोल रहे हैं, बायोचार बोल रहे हैं, तो ये अभी बाहर खेतों में और कॉन्टिकीज में बन रहा है। ऑल्दो वो हाई टेम्परेचर का ही पायरोलिसिस होगा, बट वो कितना अच्छा फीड स्टॉक था, उसमें मिक्सचर कंटेंट कैसे थे, उसमें एमिशंस कैसे था, उसमें पीएसीज है या नहीं, इसका कोई गारंटी नहीं हो सकता है। इसके लिए फॉर एग्जांपल आपका बनाने का तरीका सॉलिडिफाई होना चाहिए। मतलब आपको 5-6 महीने का बनाने का एक्सपीरियंस होना चाहिए। वो एक्सपीरियंस आने के बाद आपको पता है ये पकाया कैसे जाता है। उसके बाद आप 1-2 बैचेस बनाओगे, वो टेस्टिंग के लिए भेजोगे, वो समझोगे कि असली में हानिकारक चीज़ें नहीं है। और उसके बाद बहुत कॉन्फिडेंट है तो वो अगर क्वालिटी स्टैंडर्ड्स मीट किया तो वो फीड में आ सकता है। बट ऐसे ही जो भी बाहर बना रहा है उसको खिलाइए मत। काफी काफी कॉन्फिडेंट होना चाहिए वो करने के लिए। स्मॉल क्वांटिटीज में करना है तो किसी किसी से जानकार हो जाइए जो इसी काम के लिए कर रहे हैं बायोचार, और अच्छे क्वालिटी का कर रहे हैं, यूज कर रहे हैं। बट ये चांस मत लीजिए अनदर से, मतलब रॉन्ग होने का चांसेस रहता है।
तो
हाँ।
एक क्वेश्चन है उसके साथ तेजस की, कॉटन में काफी पेस्टिसाइड्स यूज करते हैं।
हाँ।
तो
हाँ।
वो पेस्टिसाइड्स का ब्रेकडाउन होता है 600 डिग्री पायरोलिसिस में, जब हम लोग आर्टिसनल या क्वांटिटी में करते हैं या पिट में करते हो और ड्रम में करते हो, तो ये
बहुत सारे आजकल
ब्रेकडाउन होता है क्या? ये कंटिन्यू होता है बायोचार में बैठने के लिए बाद में भी?
देर इज अ गुड चांस दैट दिस नॉट ब्रोकन डाउन। मतलब काफी अच्छा चांस है कि ये ब्रोक डाउन नहीं हो सकता है। बहुत सारे केमिकल्स है जो आजकल हम इस्तेमाल करते हैं, जिनको फॉरएवर केमिकल्स भी बोला जाता है, पीएफएस भी बोला जाता है, जो काफी नुकसान कर रहे हैं ह्यूमंस के लिए भी और एनवायरनमेंट के लिए भी। और वो पेस्टिसाइड्स में भरपूर है। तो काफी हाई टेम्परेचर्स पे ये ब्रेक डाउन होते हैं। और अगर ये ब्रेक डाउन नहीं हुआ और वो अगर डाइजेस्टिव ट्रैक में चला गया तो काफी हार्मफुल रह सकता है। इसीलिए सॉइल अमेंडमेंट की तरह यूज करिए। क्योंकि आज के डेट में ऑर्गेनिक और नेचुरल फार्मिंग नहीं हो रहा है जैसे 50 साल पहले हो रहा था। तो आजकल के जो कोयला बाहर बनता है उसको रेडीली आप खाने का या गाय को देने का चीजें ना ही करिए, बेटर रहेगा।
ओके, एनीबडी क्वेश्चन?
I have one last question. Going to Bibhishan's question कि alkaline soils में ये अभी बायोचार अल्कलाइन है और अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में उसे ऐड करना है, तो नेचुरल वे में हम लोग कितने बायोचार को एनरिच करते समय कितना उसका पीएच लोअर कर सकते हैं? लाइक आपने बोला कि उसको 5 तक, 4.5 तक लेके आ सकते हैं, बट आपने क्या देखा है आपके एक्सपीरियंस में कि इसका पीएच कितना लोअर करके हम लोग अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में ऐड कर सकते हैं?
नहीं, मिक्सिंग मटेरियल के बारे में 5-5.5 बोला था। जीवामृत का फॉर एग्जांपल 5-5.5 है, बायो एंजाइम्स का 5-5.5 है, ये गौ अमृत करके एक है उसका भी अराउंड द सेम थिंग है। तो इनके साथ जब 8 या 9 के पीएच का बायोचार मिल जाता है तो थोड़ा बहुत बायोचार का पीएच करेक्शन हो जाता है, और उसको बिलो 8 लाया गया है, हमने लाया है, और 7.5 तक भी लाया है। और उस पीएच में ऐड करना आज मतलब उससे कोई नुकसान नहीं होगा, वो हेल्दी ही रहेगा। एंड उसके साथ साथ क्या करते हैं, हम ऑर्गेनिजम्स को भी लाते हैं, माइक्रोब्स को भी लाते हैं, और माइक्रोब्स का खाना भी लाते हैं यूजुअली जब होता है, तो दैट सेट्स ऑफ एक रिएक्शन स्टार्ट हो जाता है उससे, जहाँ पर माइक्रोब्स आके ऑर्गेनिक मैटर को खा रहे, मर रहे, ऑर्गेनिक एसिड्स रिलीज हो रहा है, एंड दैट सेट्स ऑफ दोज हॉटस्पॉट्स की तरह चालू हो जाता है, जहाँ से पीएच करेक्शन, सॉइल स्ट्रक्चर करेक्शन कैन टेक ऑफ। तो यस, बट अगर अल्कलाइन सॉइल्स में डायरेक्टली बायोचार ला रहे हैं तो इट्स ऑलवेज गुड टू करेक्ट दैट पीएच विथ स्ट्रॉन्ग एसिडिक इनपुट्स लाइक जीवामृत हो या एंजाइम्स हो या इफेक्टिव माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स का सॉल्यूशन। Caution needs to be taken alkaline soils में डालते हैं,
All
definitely.
right. Thanks for that. Vibhishan, do you have any other questions?
Regarding, no,
Please.
no, no.
Okay.
No, no.
I think Tejas, that was a great session. A lot of technical information. Yeah, we have you back. All right.
Sorry for the poor network, but it's unavoidable.
Yeah, no issues. I think that was a great session. We did a lot of properties. The CEC was, for me, it was a personal learning to understand it in this detail. And the role of pH, you highlighted it very well across different types of soils. Lot to sit in and think about. That was a great session. Thanks again. Next week we are doing on carbon life cycle and biochar. We'll hope to see everybody at that time. Any last words, Tejas, before we sign off?
Thank you, Anand. And yes, I mean, how to charge biochar is something that we can do later. But why biochar has gained so much popularity suddenly? I think understanding the planet Earth and its carbon cycle and the biochar's role in this carbon cycle and how it is helping us is important to understand, so that we understand the recent hype behind the biochar. So it will be hopefully a good topic to discuss about.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
again.
all.
Happy biocharing, everyone. See you next